Let's go to the questions. All right. So I do have a lot of questions on my side, but I will let the attendees go first. First of all, I would like to compliment your team for creating such amazing products. I don't know if you can see my face throughout the presentation. I was a little bit impressed, over the top of especially the I believe it was the pretzel and the pizza formulation. That's pretty impressive. So I do want to see you eat the pizza crust. I wanted to know if is it more like a cardboard kind of texture, because you've got so much fiber in there, you got so much protein in there. How's that? Can you actually pull it in front of us to show us?
Yeah, so I did a thin crust. I really like thin crust. So I prefer it to, be, a little bit of a snap, but also somewhat of a pull too. So that's my preference of pizza crust.
Okay.
More of a thin, of course you can make it thicker and adjusting, how much you're proofing, baking time, baking temperature, etc. So this is my preference of pizza crust. So
okay.
I definitely take the samples home at the end of the day.
Yeah. How about the control? Was there a control there?
Yep. Very similar.
Okay.
Right. Yep. Very similar to the FiberSim product.
Yeah. Okay. So the first question is, what are the differences in terms of taste, texture, and shelf life when you compare the classic white bread and keto white bread?
So a lot of the similarities, it depends on the formulation, of course, for this keto bread, at least for the samples that I made. I guess I forgot to show you the crumb structure of our our lower carbohydrate bread. And so because we are using this modified wheat starch, it works really well with other wheat products. And so now sorry, I'm getting crumbs on my keyboard. And along with our different Arise products. So, there's still a nice bit of pull, but not too much pull. And you can really tailor it to, if you want it a little bit more chewy or less chewy. So I feel like we are getting really close to having that keto bread with these ingredients. If Odie, you had some comments on the question.
Yeah, I do. I think I would I would refer to my personal experience with what's commercially available out there. I think when it comes to taste, and I think it has something to do with the ingredients used in the formula. Some of the low carb breads or keto breads in the market, they are really like the taste is like flat because it doesn't have the benefit of sugar or high fructose corn syrup. So that's one thing I noticed. But yet, it's a typical bread. Maybe it's smaller than a classic white bread. But what is really, I could recognize the difference is really the taste. It's somewhat flat, and you need to maybe use a peanut butter to make it more.
Or maybe just
those
like
are the
a
ones
sourdough powder or something like that. A sourdough powder that gives it a different dimension to it. And there are like yeast extracts that are more buttery than natural flavors. That could do it too. Give it a sugary confectionery flavor. Yeah.
Correct. Yeah.
Great point. Yeah. So Paul had a question and he found the answer. So I'm going to skip over Paul. Next question is, does Arise or FiberSim carry a E number?
They do. FiberSim, I remember it's chemically called phosphated distarch phosphate. And I believe the E number is 1413, E1413. I will have to send you, to Joanna or you, Lynn, the E number for wheat protein isolate. There is one, but I just don't forget the exact
Okay,
E
so
number.
for both FiberSim and Arise, there are E numbers.
Correct. Yes.
Okay, got it. Thank you. Next question is it possible for MGP to come up with a SKU combining properties of elasticity and extensibility similar to wheat flour? I think it's possible.
Can you repeat the question, please?
Is it possible for your team to come up with a SKU combining properties with elasticity and extensibility similar to wheat flour? So I guess just using a rice to mimic wheat flour, a rice and FiberSim, like create a system, a ready to go system that's similar to wheat flour.
I think, that is really a very challenging endeavor. But what comes close to it, I think, in my opinion, is using the Arise 6000 and Arise 8200, because as you will note in the photographs, they have that so-called both extensibility and elasticity. So how to make one that really suits the desire of the product developer, meaning it remains to be seen. But those are my two choices to come from.
Yeah, so I would like to add to that as well. This is a great idea, and this is something that should be done at your bakery for yourself in terms of understanding what kind of a creative blend that you can make that's suited for your product. In fact, this is a great idea if you are tired of dealing with wheat flour quality issues. So buy 3 or 4 blends of this and just blend it up to make your own flour. Wheat quality problem solved. I hope that answered your question. Okay, next. Will the wheat protein isolate work for cookies?
Yes, definitely. I had one formulation, the peanut butter cookie recipe, and we have some other cookie formulations that contain both our FiberSim and our wheat protein isolates. So definitely a possibility.
Okay, great. Next question is, what is the water absorption level for analog flour, which is FiberSim plus a rice, versus standard wheat flour for white bread making? Great question.
So I tried to, I guess, simplify this to say when we are increasing the wheat protein isolate, say by 1 gram, then I'm going to increase the water content by 2 grams. So if that could help. So I guess it depends on what you're really looking for, how much Arise are you having in here compared to the FiberSim. But just to simplify it, when you are adding any type of wheat protein isolate, usually you do need to add that additional amount of water for that isolate.
Okay, thank you. Elaine asked a really different, I say, public perception kind of question. I think this is somewhere along the line of public perception and legislation, and we can pass this on to your legal department if you want to send the good answer. But how is the public reacting psychologically and physiologically to these products? Can we get the EBT card system and national health insurers and food suppliers to universities and national sporting events to make these available and affordable? Loaded question. What's the perception so far on these products? What do you guys think?
Let me say that just by the sheer number of product launches, as you can see in that slide, and what's prominent is, modified wheat starch is top on the list, wheat protein isolate is close by. So we don't see, from my understanding, a negative perception, meaning we haven't heard that as far as complaining about whether it's performance or taste and texture. So of course, the labeling of fiber sim is modified wheat starch, and of course the word modified is not really clean. We wanted, of course, if we can label it as a wheat fiber, we will do, but FDA will not allow us to do that. But as far as our customer service or even our sales team receiving a negative uh, perception about the actual quality of the product or the labeling or how it's labeled, we really haven't seen that.
And I wanted to add to that as well. There has been a huge call for keto products, right? And as we know, a lot of the keto consumers crave bread a lot. This provides an alternative for people who are on a high performance diet to really consume any kind of baked product. If anything, I feel like this is a key point in the innovation of the entire baking industry to really make people love bread again. So if anything, I feel like psychologically, this is going to help a lot of people. You mean I can eat a bagel that's, like I've been avoiding bagel because honestly, it's got so much carbs. So if someone out there, if you are a bakery out there deciding you want to make a low net carb bagel, I'll be your first tester, okay? Because it is really difficult to do that, the taste, the texture. And if you produce something that is available to a portion of the market that is avoiding bagel right now, you have a huge market there. So I just want to point out that this is not just low carb healthy baking. This is entering a niche part of the bakery sector that doesn't have much right now, that doesn't offer much offerings, right? So I feel like psychologically it's going to excite a lot of people because finally they can eat bagel without feeling guilty. They can eat pizza without feeling guilty about the carbs. Like Weight Watchers, they count the carbs, right? So this completely changes the game for Weight Watchers pizza eaters. They can eat, 2 slices instead of 1 slice. So this really changes the game for a lot of people out there. So that's my reaction to this. I hope that helped.
Well, Lynn, I agree with you completely. If many in the audience remember the Atkins diet in early 2000, the low carb craze, you can just imagine how many traditional bakery companies suffer from it.
Yeah.
Krispy Kreme in particular, because a lot of bakery products are high carb. So had it been, meaning product developers have improved to make this product.
Tremendously.
So now it's available. It wasn't about 17 years ago, about 2003, but you are correct exactly that
Right. I think you guys are going to see a huge innovation jump here in the terms of lower carb, because now people can eat bakery goods without feeling guilty. That's the market all of the bakers out there should be targeting. Okay.
Correct. I agree with you.
Maybe this will create a new wave of niche products. I don't know what that's going to be, but I'm pretty excited with it. All right, let's go to the next question. How will the fiber sim and wheat protein affect the shelf life of cookies and crackers? I want to know that answer too.
We do have one study at Kansas State University on sugar snap cookie. And so comparing a control cookie with fiber sim, and I think, let's see, it was a potato starch as well, blend with flour. And so the snap force was similar to the control. I think I can look up. So the fiber sim versus flour cookie snapping force, it was 9.2 versus 9.3. So right on the ball there, same snapping force. So just to discuss a little bit of the data that we do have on fiber sim in cookies.
So to add to that, Sarah, I wanted to ask you, because I'm not so sure about the water that you add in do you have to have a longer bake time to make sure you have the same snap?
For a control versus FiberSim, whenever I'm making cookies, I do not have to change the baking time or
Okay.
temperature. I use the same.
Okay, that's my only worry about that. Okay, thanks for answering that.
Mhm.
Can other plant proteins like pea protein mimic some of the elastic properties of gluten?
The answer is
So
simply
gluten really,
no.
yeah, go ahead.
No, go ahead. But the answer is
Sarah,
no.
go ahead.
Oh, I just was saying that, gluten has those awesome properties of that viscoelastic properties. Pea protein doesn't have those properties. Pea protein does help with some foaming properties though, but gluten is just one of a kind.
It is, isn't it?
Yeah.
Yeah, and I can add to that, Lin Ming, when you look at the composition of wheat gluten, quite prominent or predominant are the gliadin and glutenin with minor amounts of globulin and albumin. When you look at pea protein, it's the opposite. It is high in globulin and albumin and almost insignificant amount of, like glutenin and gliadin, which they call prolamine, of course. So it can be explained compositionally. That's why it's very difficult to replicate the properties of wheat gluten.
Yeah, and no other like legumes or plant proteins have that kind of prolamine profile. Is that right?
Correct, meaning I think I indicated that on the uniqueness of wheat gluten. We really cannot. Meaning people associate rye bread that maybe it has that wheat gluten. It really doesn't have, although they are genetically related, but there is no flour source, whether from pulses or other cereal grains that you can mix with water and form a dough. It's actually only, wheat.
I think I know where this question is going actually, because if we do, I'm not saying we have the solution right now. If you do find a solution that that other plant can make other plant proteins have the same prolamine profile, then the entire gluten-free segment is yours. So
Correct.
right now it's not possible, guys.
That
Okay,
is
that's
correct.
just my comment. Yeah, gluten-free is a huge market. So I think that's why people are looking for plant-based high protein systems for the gluten-free field as well. So all right, let's now go to the next question. Amy had a follow-up. Just would like to rephrase my question previously. For a standard white bread recipe made using wheat flour, let's say water absorption is about 60%. What is the water absorption level based on Sarah's experience? A similar recipe's water absorption level using FiberSim plus a rice, yielding the similar texture as the standard white bread using wheat flour. So more specifically, what is the increase in absorption?
So again, depending on how much of the wheat protein isolate or a rise you are having in this composite flour, and I guess what your goal is and how much dietary fiber you need as well. So it's definitely a question we will be happy to follow up. If you want to email us and let us help you out with your formulation, maybe you have a sample formulation, then we can help out, even try it out here to decide what is the actual water absorption level that would need to be for your new bread product. But otherwise, for guessing, it would be a little higher than 60%, but again, it depends on the ratio of all the other ingredients.
All right. Thank you. Next question is, what kind of support will NGP provide us to help make a product that mimics our current products?
Mm-hmm.
How do you make my nice tasting brioche high protein? That's a question. And still tastes like brioche.
Yeah.
Yeah, Lynn, we provide technical support. Of course, we do that for a living, meaning we can communicate by email or whatever. We also can welcome customers to come and work in our lab. And we can also, if they can share what recipe, we can sign a mutual non-disclosure agreement, or they can send us a mix without telling us what it is. And, we can work with them. I think we do this as part of our roles, R&D and technical service to serve our customers.
Okay, thank you. I am in Jamaica. How will I get a sample of fiber seam and wheat protein?
Just send us an email.
Yep.
And we'll gladly support that request.
I have some more questions, so I'm gonna ask them. I'm gonna reduce my questions down. But before I ask my questions, I have this comment to make, really. Because of COVID and because of the reduction in commercialization runs, we are going to see a dearth of new products next year, 2021. Okay. So my plea to all the bakers out there is don't miss out. Like, spend this time doing the R&D. Okay. So you have at least one commercialization run in January and you don't have a dearth of products in 2021. Okay. We still need to innovate and we still need to do R&D. Okay. Because if everybody reacts by not pushing out new products next year, then we're going to have a problem with innovation on the supermarket shelves. Okay. So I hope we are able to convince you today to keep the R&D activities going on strong, because you don't want to lack any kind of innovation on the supermarket shelves next year. Okay. So reach out to the MGP team through the email that Joanna posted on our chat window. And I'm just going to limit myself to just one question because we really need to wrap this up. Again, I was very impressed by the pretzel formulation. Very, very impressed. I've never seen, that much difference in a nutritional label before. So great job, Sarah. Okay, the Midosol 50 versus FiberSim. Okay, that example of the softness in the bread. Was the softness due to the increase in volume?
So I was suspecting that as well, that the one made with Midsol 50 did have slightly higher volume than the one made with FiberSim. It was very slight. So then that is where a larger loaf, I guess you can kind of see it for this one. We have the Midsol 50 versus the FiberSim. I mean, very similar loaf volume, but with a greater loaf volume than because it's not as a dense structure compared to the FiberSim, then it could have a softer crumb. So that is something I was suspecting too.
Okay. All right. So can I ask one more question, please?
Yeah.
Okay. With low carb breads without sugar, we know that it browns less. Did you give it any kind of preferential treatment in the oven?
No, especially with these pup loaf bake tests, it's a standardized test. I always follow it exactly to a T, so there's no difference. So maybe if lighting's different, I think that we can see that the color is very similar for the control and the one that's enhanced.
Okay, so you didn't need to bake longer to get more caramelization.
I did not, because I wanted to have the same exact parameters. But otherwise, that is a discussion topic of, maybe if people want to add in yeast food or something else to help promoting, the yeast development, food for the yeast, the browning, looking at some of the other fibers, but it's really if you want to just have the surface browner and not the internal crumb, because some other fibers, while they are a darker color, they'll make your crumb also darker as well.
Great. Thank you.
Mhm.
All right, everyone. We are going to wrap this up. So thank you, Sarah. And thank you, Dr. Odie, for coming on and presenting another amazing informational segment on lower carb and healthy baking development. If you have any more questions, you can reach out to Janelle. Her email is right there. And I welcome you to view our resources at BAKERpedia for fiber and high protein, and attend our next BAKERview. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you.
you.
Bye.
Yep,
Bye-bye.
bye.